that's my logo. And that's explaining a bit how I work with people. My idea is to allow them to get rid of all the burden they have accumulated and really find their essence. Today, I would like to talk to you about resilience in alignment, a short manual on how to recover aliveness. My name is Claudine Marchand. I've studied biochemistry, neurobiology, and research for about 18 years, basic research, and then I had enough and needed to see in a whole human being how what I was doing affected a life and not just cells in a test tube. So I went into alternative medicine and learned different techniques, methodologies. And since I've never seen a body walk around by itself nor a psyche, I decided to get an ECP, and I did ECP in EANLPt. So that's my background. And since then I've been working with all the tools that I have accumulated. So during the presentation, I probably will also talk about body health and such things whenever something comes up. My definition of resilience, I see two possibilities of resilience. The first one Elizabeth mentioned this morning with the roly-poly, which reminds me of somebody who hits the ground and immediately bounces back and just goes on with their life. Very often business as usual because I can't take days off for sickness or whatever. I'm too important in my job, I can't take sick leave, I have to go on. And the second person, which I would encourage people to follow as a project, is to go through a period of confusion after having hit the ground, which is the learning phase. Reconsider exactly what happened, what brought them into this situation, re-evaluate what their thoughts processes were, their feelings and actions that led to the present situation. And then from this analysis, see what was helpful and what they could change and create new thoughts, new belief systems, new action patterns to fully actualize, including all aspects in their life, which means a full overhaul of where they are at. So a crisis that leads to an evaluation, to learning, and to actualizations. I came upon this sentence some days ago. Ismail in Aleppo is working with the white helmets, the people who dig into the houses that have been bombed and all that to find whether there are some survivors. And he says he's not going to leave Aleppo or Syria because it's his land, his city, and it's my home. And as he goes on saying, we have nothing to eat. We'll run out of bread and fuel in a month. Our best hope is that the siege is broken, but we are not asking for bread or food. We want freedom and social justice. And that made me think about the pyramid of Maslow. Is it really true that I need a basic situation where I have food, shelter, and all my basic needs taken care of? So I have the human being and the pyramid of Maslow. And in our societies, we usually take care of the basic needs of people. Very rarely we let them starve. It still happens, but there are some other circumstances involved in that. And then we think that by supplying them with these needs, what they need, they will be able to adapt to society and do whatever is necessary. Your group, in your case studies, talked about these people who are driving themselves very, very hard. And to come back to the basic needs, there is a point just before the burnout when the people really feel that they are all powerful. They can do whatever they want. They are beyond the normal physical laws. And if you look at their feet at that moment, their feet are completely lifeless. When you take them into your hand, it's like having a cloud in your hand. It's nothing substantial there anymore. So that's a way of teaching them before they fall on their face to say, you can feel the difference in a foot that's full of life and your feet that are just walking on a cloud. I have been working with people who really couldn't see that they were just on the brink of falling into the abyss. And you have to find examples where they can see in their own body, in their own life, that it's really 3 minutes before midnight and it's really the moment to intervene there. So this person has received the physical needs, but as in the citations I had of Ismail, I believe that there is another triangle, topsy-turvy, and I call that the interior triangle. And if there is an inner urge, a mission, or whatever you want to call it, that really feeds the person can take that and find their needs in the outer world. So, to be able to have that, the person has to be aligned between the matter, the earth, and their mind, spirituality, whatever you want to call. The person has to be completely aligned and have their interior triangle integrated, which brings them to a still point from which they will guide their life. And this still point is not quite in the heart, as I have found with my clients, because it's an integration of what the Japanese call the hara, or in the martial arts, where you have the physical equilibrium point, and this point, if it's really safe, it gives you the security in your life. I haven't ever seen anybody as spiritual as they can be, that's heart-centered and up in spirituality and able to face the constraint of our daily life if they don't have this very safe material security. How do we build a quake or tsunami safe house? We have to prove the support elements, and the support elements are relationships. Relationship with ourselves, our different parts, relationships with the environment around us and all that. The Hawaiian have an expression with it, which they call the aka field, which is probably similar to Sheldrake's morphogenetic field, but goes even further. And when the connections in this aka field are supportive and nourishing, everything is fine. As soon as one of the connections becomes tight or putrid, or whatever you want to call it, it has to be cut, dissolved, so that the person can find its freedom again. So we have the relationship with oneself, all our inner parts, as we have seen with Birgit and other people. And this relationship will be based on welcoming who we are and acknowledging all who we are. And one thing that I found very important is to be aware that life has chosen us. We wouldn't be here if life hasn't chosen us. So who are we to dare to say we are not at the right point, at the right moment, and say we are not good enough or whatever? All these judgments we are using, if we have been chosen by life to be here at that moment, it's fine. Which will create self-respect, self-esteem, and trust in ourselves. If we can trust life, then we can trust ourselves too. And that creates openness, curiosity, and creativity. Kind of becoming childlike again. Just explore what's going on around us. The external relationships with others, the background of this slide are little spider webs. The different environments to which we connect. Relationship with others is the same thing again. When we are able to welcome the other person and acknowledge them the way they are, knowing that since they exist, life has accepted them, this creates mutual respect, esteem, and trust. Again, openness, curiosity, and creativity. And I'm adding, we need some discernment so we don't walk into dangerous situations, even without judgment. And that way we can create a solid social network, which brings ecology into the human relations, into our economical relations, and also our relation to nature. And I was wondering, what's actually the basis of resilience? Because it doesn't stand in empty space. So could it be a function of the vitality of the person? Could that be the difference, that some people are naturally resilient and others not? And I found this wonderful expression of a client who said, I had to reclaim myself to be resourced enough to tolerate risking, feeling my feelings, experiencing my own experience, and taking chances in my self-expression. So, as usual, the first step is to rebuild oneself. And the vitality of a person is determined by their connections and their self-fidelity, as Bessel van der Kolk said. He had a patient who came in who didn't even open his eyes. He was brought in by his wife. His medical doctor had told him that he was in a terminal state of cancer, And after this declaration, this guy had just lost all hope, and he was just repeating in an interior monologue, "I'll die, I'll die, nothing else." So why should he open his eyes and see what's changing or what's going around him, around him? He just closed his eyes and shut off. And his wife tried to get him to do things still and so on. As long as you're not dead, you're still alive and all these things. But somehow he just couldn't hear that. So Bessel van der Kolk told him, "Look, I know you are going to die. I know there is no reason for you to do anything for yourself, but think of your wife. As long as you are there, just start with doing one new thing each day, one kind thing every day for your wife, and then maybe for you." And so he recreated a sense of wholeness and connection in this man's life, and actually he survived. How can we keep or restore vitality? Another thing that has been found is that we have all been hardwired to muster courage when an important person of our entourage is in danger. So we can activate this neurobiology of positive drive by creating an emergency for the client you are working with, to intervene, to save somebody, to do something so that somebody else doesn't drown in their own life. So contributing, pursuing, creating and connecting, sharing, loving, supporting and helping keeps the focus in the present. So they can't create anxiety and project themselves into catastrophe. And at the same time, it brings meaning and purpose to the life. As the person said, that's where vitality is. It's playing the games of living. So even if somebody says, there is no sense in my life anymore, why don't you just play with it? Play the game of living as you do on the virtual games in your computer. It has been verified that through body work, yoga, tai chi, or other martial arts and dance, the person will open up themselves and open the capacity to lovingly engage with their own physical sensations. Research has found that there is a slight increase in medial prefrontal cortex activation, an increase in selective parts of the brain that have to do with noticing oneself and taking care of oneself. And they did this brain scan with people who had medication and people who were doing yoga, and they only found the positive correlation with the yoga and not with the medication. So apparently yoga is more powerful actually than medication. What's interesting in this kind of activity is that you don't need to reactivate the traumatism. Through the body work, you create a safe environment, a contact with what's there, without the person having to go through the words again and to reawaken the stress situation. Afterwards, once the person has been able to connect to their physical safety, it will be easier for them to do also the deeper work on relationship and whatever. And this kind of activity helps to connect with one's emotion and basic rhythm. That's also something very important I haven't found often in literature, the rhythm of a person. Because traumatism kicks people out of their normal rhythm and disorganizes them. So if they can find again routines that bring them back into self-alignment, it's very helpful. And two brains in that sentence means the right and the left one. And at the same time, if these activities are done in pairs, the persons are confronted with a foreign rhythm, foreign feelings, expressions, and they have to learn to synchronize themselves with this external input. And that all without being confronted, am I able or not to understand what the other person is living, because it's just going through the movements. These two pyramids are being connected through awareness. All this connection, these lemniscates, which go from one to the other and through the central point of the person, are only able to function in a conscious way when there is awareness. There are many things we do without any conscious awareness, we just function. But if a person has gone through a disruptive state, they have to create awareness to recover this possibility again. So, awareness creates beliefs and attitudes. So, I would say the basic is to teach a person again some level of self-awareness. And for that, as we have heard, mindfulness is a good way. I use a lot heart coherence exercises coupled with gratitude. I found it's much more efficient when the person is calling up a feeling of gratitude at the same time as doing the breathings. It kind of creates a more full field. We were measuring the energy fields of the people, and it was really interesting to see the difference with and without a positive emotion. The second one is what we saw before, awareness of the bodies and feelings, which helps them listen to intuition before they walk into a situation which they really could have avoided. And the awareness of first, second, and third position, which will help people to see that it's really different to be just in one's own shoes or completely in the other shoes or in an observer position, seeing what's going on as processes between two people or several in a group. And that will trigger emotional intelligence by allowing to read others and having more successful interactions. How do we recover lost vitality? The first one is always, for me, to resolve inner conflicts. Inner conflicts are probably a waste of energy that's above 50%. As we have seen, we can use timeline, part work, drama, hypnosis, forgiveness exercises, or whatever. Then resolving the outer conflicts through direct mediation, communication among the selves of the people. I've had a person who was being mobbed, and she couldn't talk to her boss directly, so we worked with the selves, herself and the boss self, and the whole enterprise actually. And it was just amazing the results that happened. And also work maybe on ancestral lines with the environment we are in, not just with Feng Shui, but also in other ways. And creating a feeling of being connected to oneself, to the environment, integrate all the different parts of the person and their environment, and having a feeling of being whole again. And with all that, I come to the final slide. Aliveness is a kind of internal freedom. Be a friend to yourself and know you're fine. Stay with what is good for you. Let it sink in and be registered. That's really important. Many people know what's good for them, but they don't go down into the cellular level. And as they say in Tibet, if you take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves. Thank you.